Can you believe it's Saturday again? It's 11 o'clock. Welcome to another Badminton Talk Podcast. I'm here with Mark Topping. Mark Topping, how are you today?
Not bad, John. It's getting very long, this COVID lockdown, so I'm getting a little bored, but I'm in good form. How about yourself?
Yeah, I know it's getting a little bored. I'm kind of been interesting. I watched the All England and then I was watching the New Orleans in France, Mark. It's been great to watch a bit of badminton, also talk it too.
Absolutely. It wasn't the All England, especially the men's singles final. Wasn't that an incredible... You don't often get matches going to 30-29, so it was wonderful to watch.
No, it was fantastic. It was great to see Chloe and Sam advance in the early stages, and great to see Nat and taking Kadambi out. That was something, wasn't it?
That is an incredible win. I think he's ranked in the top 15 in the world anyway, and I think he may have been in the top 3 or 4 at one stage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, talking about rankings today, we have... Oh, yes. Today is a very special day, Mark, yeah? For the person we're going to interview, or that the person we did interview.
Absolutely, John. I can't wait to hear him.
Yeah, of course, Mark is going to introduce. You're going to hear this on record. Today is the 25th of March when we're putting together the final editing of the interview with this person. So the choice of song to introduce our next guest is the following. So, Mark, tell me, do you think this is appropriate? Here we go.
Take my heart and make it strong. You're simply the best, better than all the rest.
Yes, we have the one and only, of course, Tina Turner, who tells us simply the best. Do you think, Mark, that's an appropriate introduction to this legend of the game?
Absolutely, John. One of the greats. Absolutely. Really looking forward to it.
Okay, so, well, Mark, you sit there now and listen back like all our listeners on the Badminton Talk Podcast, of course. Yeah, that's the Q shuttle. So relax and enjoy the next 35 minutes. I'm handing you over here to Mark Topping, who's going to introduce the person. Okay, over to you, Mark.
Okay, John Noble, I have just got he's probably one of my biggest heroes and mentors in the world of badminton here today. This man, for me, is just... I met him when he started coaching the Irish badminton team part-time around about 1997, 1998. Ooh. And I learned so much from our guest this afternoon. This man has an incredible badminton CV. He has 2 gold medals in the men's doubles at the European Badminton Championships in 1976 in Dublin and in 1978 in Preston. He has 2 silver medals in men's doubles at the All England Badminton Championships in 1972 and 1980 with his long-term doubles partner Mike Tredget. He has a bronze medal in the men's doubles in the World Championships, which was held in Malmö in Sweden in 1977. Oh. He also has 5 English national men's singles titles and 7 English men's doubles national titles for a total of 12 gold medals. I'm sure he's plenty of silvers and bronzes in that as well. But the 12 gold medals puts him 5th on the all-time list of greatest English players ever in the Nationals. And I just say, as I say, when I first met him, I just learned so much in the 3 or 4 years that he was the part-time Irish badminton team coach. So let me give a very, very warm welcome to the legendary Ray Stevens from England, now living in Glasgow. Welcome to the podcast, Ray. How are you doing?
Fantastic, thanks, Mark. really well in difficult circumstances for everybody. And it's such a pleasure to talk with yourself, and we've done a few pre-chats prior to this meeting, and meeting John for the first time today, and we've had a very animated and interesting conversation about badminton, and it's so obvious we're all passionate about the sport of badminton.
Yeah, Ray, thank you for mentioning that. Likewise, I've heard so much about Ray Stevens. Mark has mentioned you over the years, and I hope from this podcast and more that, the badminton world gets to know more about your knowledge, your insights, because, what you have shared with me and what I've researched and listened to, Mark, it's phenomenal. It literally is phenomenal. We put on a post, and I don't want to overtake the airways just at this stage, and Mark will jump in quickly, but we put a post yesterday on social media, that Ray Stevens was coming on Badminton Talk Podcast. And boy, did we not know what to expect to get. The barometer of messages that have been coming through our social feed, from the Phil Suttons to Roy Keller, Michael O'Mara, Ray Webster, Big Paul Andecloof, and I'm probably not pronouncing his name correctly, Steve Elliott, Peter Ferguson, who's a great ambassador for the sport. He talks about the time he met you and Kevin Jolly in I think it was the Welsh Open there back in 1980, sponsored by Sunblest Open. Aidan Murray, who's been a huge name in Irish coaching in the past and coached some great players. And to goes beyond that, Jim Mailer, Debbie Miller, Stuart Carson, Thomas Nielsen, Thomas Oglam, Magnus Gustafsson. Where does it stop, Ray Stevens? It's just phenomenal.
It's not just stopped now. I've got one just from Vimal Kumar, and he runs the top of Indian badminton. But I've had such wonderful posts from all my friends, including Thomas Kielström, 1983 world champion, and so many people. Kevin Jolly ripping the banter in the chat. It's great. It's great.
Ray, can I just play one thing? Just if all our listeners can just listen to this just for a second.
And then big centre opened in my hometown in Essex. And then, how lucky can anyone be? I was fortunate to be at the same centre as the legend Ray Stevens, England.
Ooh.
And when I first met Ray, his dynamic energy nearly blew me over. It was like a tidal wave, just awesome. Something like that was the first time I realised what chi or chi energy is. And it's very powerful. Some people have a lot of it. So anyway, even though I began playing late, at the age of 19, and I had never played as a junior, I trained with Ray's young squads. Ray taught me how to move on court and become fit for tough play.
Mm-hmm.
And after these sessions, we did a further session every week. But Ray stepped up the pace in those, and I was on the receiving end that's totally stretched me. It was tough to score just a point. Yet I discovered something from being pushed hard. I got into flow state one time, and this is the state of mind where you play an autopilot.
Ray, I just wanted to play that clip. If that is the essence of what Mark and myself have been getting, to any of our listeners, what he said and what our listeners and followers and supporters all over the world has said, does tell us, independently all about the great Ray Stevens, and your story needs to be told, Ray.
Okay, thank you. Can I go back to the beginning? I started badminton when I was 11 years old, and it all came from a poster on our postboard that said, anyone want to come along for a trial can have a trial in the gym and see if you enjoy the game. Well, I was already a good sportsman. I was very gymnastic and orientated, but before that, I was a swimmer. And you've mentioned you've been a swimmer.
Yeah, love swimming.
Both front crawlers.
Yeah.
Swimming is great for the internal organs. And gymnastics was great for speed, agility. I could do a somersault forward or back, walk on my hands right round the place, no problems at all. So I was already into sport, and we've already mentioned in our warm-up,
yes,
Rod Laver. Rod Laver was my hero.
Yeah.
And I used to go to this great big coal, like a warehouse, and hit a ball against the wall. And that helped me get some hand-eye coordination. And I was probably doing that at about 7, 8 and 9.
Wow.
But I played badminton. We were a badminton school because we had 3 courts, 1 in a gym and 2 in the assembly hall. Our art teacher was Frank New. Frank New was my first coach, and he was a good coach. And he just put all the things in place that we could play badminton at the school. And you're going to be quite amazed at this, and please take it, we were at very, very different times. You are talking now 58 years ago.
Ouch. My God.
Yeah.
That's nearly as old as Mark.
So now it's very, very different times. And I used to get up to do a paper round in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And, and I requested that I got the flats so I could do the stair training, not take the lifts, but run up with the bag over my shoulder and deliver the papers and get that. I was at school by 6:30 in the morning, playing with a group of people that we would play to 8:30, all kids.
Yes.
And the janitor would let us in, no supervision at all. And come lunchtime, we'd play to 12, 1:30 and take a little packed lunch with us. 3:45 till 5 o'clock, we would play again. And then we would go back to a club in the evening where the club players used to decide whether they wanted to play with Margaret or Agatha or this sort of thing on the pegboard. And we'd be knocking up in between their games because we weren't allowed to play the games, but we were allowed the minute and a half they took to select the games. So we were the bane. We always had to get kicked off the court.
So you never suffered at fitness, Ray. That sounds like, wow, from a young age you were totally, your fitness came natural, and but also I think your mindset was, you have to be absolutely, ruthlessly fit. And of course, the score system, as we talked before we came on air, it tested the very best.
But to be honest, you didn't think about it. Just loved the sport. So this great teacher that we had, dead now. He's died in his 92. I live in Glasgow. His funeral is in Folkestone. And I kept in touch with him throughout my life, and I went to his funeral. Marvellous, marvellous man. And he didn't just change my life, he changed many people's lives.
Wow, brilliant!
That's some mentor you had to start
Brilliant.
with. That shows you how important it is to have such a good mentor.
A good coach as well. A good coach. Yeah.
What was your first badminton club, Ray?
Okay, that's an interesting one as well. We had a selection of badminton clubs, and I probably visited 4 or 5 of them. There was one where the internationals graduated to, and I would have been very, very pushed to get into that team. So I decided on another club where I would play against those players rather than playing in with those players. And it was called a club called Leighton Casuals. And to tell you what this club was like, it met a couple of times a week. It was a one church hall club. If you went a foot out of the back, you was now on the stage. Low beams, not the best. A good floor. A little kitchen where you could have your cup of tea. And
We have a lot of those.
Yeah.
We have a lot of those in the church halls around Ireland. Exactly that.
As we're saying, very different times. But to tell you what the club was like, we had the keys.
Yes.
So you go there early, 6:30, no chance of a singles, because we had 10 people for one call. But 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock, they'd all start disappearing. And we could now play singles. And we played to gone 3 o'clock in the morning. And I can always remember a policeman coming in to check why the lights were on and seeing people knocking 7 bells out of these feathers and saying, I just don't believe this.
That sounds like Gillian Clark for a second, and you're saying, I don't believe it there, right?
Yeah, unbelievable. But it was a good club. A lot of the members fed off your enthusiasm and passion and love for the game. And they say, do you need a lift to Norfolk to play in the Norfolk Open? Do you need a lift to go to the Cambridge Open? And they took you under their wing. And they were just brilliant. Brilliant people.
So what exactly...
You had the support of your club.
Sorry,
Mark.
You had the support of your club players who maybe saw potential in you and wanted to help you on your way. That was a real good community feel. Like that seems to me community.
It was, but I'm going to bring in the ruthless bit here. You keep climbing up the ladder and getting your sparring and partners better until I was playing at the club with all the internationals and could get into their team, which happened about 15 or 16. And the better you played, the better games you got. And when you weren't playing, you were playing table tennis in the kitchen room.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what age did you start taking badminton really seriously when you thought, you know what, I could be really good at this game? And when did you start thinking that way?
Yeah, you're not going to quite believe this. I started at 11, and I started thinking like that at 11.
Well, that will surprise a lot of our listeners, Ray.
I wanted to be the best, and I had so many things. This marvellous first coach, art teacher that I told you about, Frank New, he took us to the All England each year, and from one of the guys at the clubs, he introduced us to Erlen Cops who was a 7 times winner of the All England. Can you imagine how motivational that is for a 12 or 13-year-old kid?
Incredible.
You're meeting someone who's probably going to win the championships.
Brilliant.
It's incredible.
Wow. So Ray, relatively speaking, at 11, you were a late starter, because a lot of players start earlier. I'm only just
Earlier than that.
Yeah,
I
so-
certainly have it. Someone starting earlier than that. And I'm going to say this as well.
Yeah.
I think to have cross-sport skills is very important. And I'm just going to mention one of the best talents I've saw in the last 20 years was probably Chris Adcock.
Yes.
Chris Adcock could and is a brilliant badminton player, and I always thought he would make a world-class singles player. But he was also brilliant at football.
Right, and did you have to make that choice of football or badminton at some stage, Ray?
Yes,
Oh.
about 11, 12 years old. And I'm going to say this about Darren Hall, who's my cousin as well.
Wow.
Darren Hall was a brilliant football player.
That's
Very
interesting.
good. And but he loved his badminton, and he had his cousin who was England #1 and could coach him. So he chose badminton. And it comes a point where cross-sport is fantastic,
Yes.
but if you want to really make it,
Yeah.
you have to be obsessive. And I'm not going to apologise for that. Obsessive about making the sport. And not everyone's going to do it.
No.
But there's nothing finer than waking up each day and saying, I wonder if I can be the best at this. How can I improve today? What can I do to make myself a better player? I want to be world class.
Yeah, I can certainly hear this in your voice, Ray. If any of our listeners here to this Badminton Talk podcast want to get inspiration, just listen to Ray Stevens. And it's funny, you mentioned football there, and you quoted Darren Hall, your cousin, and the Adcock. I remember having a conversation a few years ago with Scott Evans, who you might know. Scott Evans, I'm sure you do. You know everyone. Ray probably met everyone too. He said to me at one time when as I said 4 or 5 years ago, he said I had to make a choice between football or badminton, and I asked him what age he was, and strangely enough, it was around 13. He said I was really good at football. But I decided on badminton, and maybe his family come from badminton. His father was Martin is a really good badminton player in his day, and became a very good squash player later on. I don't want to go into another sport, but yeah, that stacks up, and but you have to have that specialization, and the age you'd suggest on specializing would be what, Ray, to look,
it's what grabs you. I think. The desire, the determination has to come from within. I've seen so many kids that could have been champions if they had their parents' desire and determination for them to be good.
Yes.
And you've probably seen it as well. It's got to come from within. I got nothing from my parents. They were wonderful parents, but they didn't know what a badminton racket was.
Yes, yeah, that's the difference, yeah.
And I'm just going to say one other thing. We went over my early childhood, and you saw how much I played, and that was every day. Weekends would be even more.
Yep.
And when I went home, I'd often, and remember how long we're talking ago now, there was not the cars on the roads that there are now.
No.
I would go under the street light and practice my backhand into the wind, getting hundreds and hundreds of backhands into the wind. So it brought me, the shuttle brought back exactly where I wanted it.
Must have been quite windy where you were, Ray, because I know you had a good backhand.
But you'd look out and you'd say, there's enough wind there. If I hit it high enough and follow it under the street light, I could get it. And people don't believe, but everyone's got their story. If you went into Michael Watt, I asked Michael Watt, what did he remember about his early badminton?
Yes.
And he said, doing shuttle runs on the driveway and the ice breaking under my shoes.
Wow. That seems almost like a contradictory. How can you do that? Wow. That's
Well, he would have done it, and that can be checked. You could ask Michael that, because that's what he said to me.
Yeah.
Another question for you, Ray. It's just brilliant to listen to you. I'm just moving on just a little bit further on in your badminton career. Do you remember your debut for the England badminton team? What age were you? Who did you play against and who did you play with and what were the results?
Okay, and I'm going to take you into that, but we're missing out a really crucial part of my development.
Yeah?
I would travel 25 miles one way across London on a motorbike when I was 16 to train at the Wimbledon Badminton Club.
Right.
Okay, and there were 3 Malaysians there, the brothers. They're all top doctors now. They all went to Cambridge, and Chong Jin got into finals of All Englands and played with massive smash he had. Played with Erlen Kops. Chong Tek was a Malaysian Thomas Cup player, and his uncle was Wong Ping Soon. And Chong Hao, and this is the amazing one, was my idol. He was very young. Won the All England under 18 at 13.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dang.
that would be something. And the first year he entered the All England, he knocked Stren Pri out in the quarterfinals, 15-7, 15-2, and didn't put one smash in. And then had a smash that could break shuttles.
Wow.
He got to the semi-final and met a player that a lot of people consider the very best player ever. I think Lin Dan is better, but a lot of people would put Rudy Hartono in their top, and he got smashed by Rudy Hartono. Rudy Hartono was far too quick. And if you look at the early scores of when Rudy was 18 and going through the All England like a hot knife through butter, it's 15-love, 15-1, 15-1, 15-2. And even the finals were 15-3, 15-1. He was amazing as a youngster.
Wow.
Very dominant.
So I'm going to say Stren Pri was number 2 in the world, and believe me, he had a smash. Rudy Hartono beat him in the 1970 Munich Olympics, 15-6, 15-1.
Oh my God, that's devastation.
Devastation, and that's what he was like.
Yeah.
So did you train with these 3 Malaysian guys
Yes, they took me under their wing. I was so lucky.
Wow.
They could see my enthusiasm, my desire, that they were from a very wealthy family. And the difference was, and again, I'm going to qualify it because it was very different time. The English internationals, and full respect to them, they were very good. They'd play their 2 hours badminton and then go for the gin and tonics to the bar. Yeah. And it was a different sport. All put their jackets on, everything. The Malaysians would play for 4 hours, go for a run for 1 hour, and then they're set with a pot of tea and talk for 2 hours on badminton.
Oh, well, that's incredible. That's incredible. Like,
and that was the environment that I got brought up in. And I was so lucky to have those mentors. And they didn't pull punches. They didn't pull punches if you weren't training hard enough or putting in the effort. It wasn't good enough. You know, they'd tell you.
Yeah. Well, Ray. You were also very highly motivated, and that was picked up as well. So you earned to be, you know, with those type of companies, with that desire and passion you had, and that they probably benefit, and I'm quite sure as much as you benefited too. But it leads on to a really good question here on the Badminton Talk podcast: is what was your training regime like when you were playing at your very best? Like, I mean, you talk about the 4 hours those guys played. They went out for the 1 hour run. They had tea and for 2 hours. But how many hours per day, you know, when you were at your best, were you training? What was your physical work? You know, time that you played on the court. Who did you play with? You know, tell our listeners that. It would
an ideal time, because it got messed up. We were. We destroyed it by it becoming too popular. We had people coming from all over the world to join our little cell, from Australia, New Zealand, Canada. Where's a place to go? Redbridge in Essex. Okay? And there was too many people for the facilities. We only had one court that we could get for about 3 hours a day, if we were lucky. And there used to be fights over getting that court. But my ideal day was wake up about 7 o'clock, do a 20-minute stretch. As soon as I got out of bed, back stretches, all the flexibility that you can imagine a gymnast doing. Kevin Jolly and I, and Sven actually, could do the splits both ways. So,
That's incredible.
so it was, but
that didn't happen by accident.
No, that didn't. Both ways. Oh my God, the sound of that makes me feel. Oh God, that's incredible. Your flexibility.
We treated our stretching very importantly. I used to do at least 3 stretching sessions a day, which was easy. If you were watching the box for an hour in the evening or something, I could be stretching.
Yeah,
you know?
multitask.
Yeah, that was definitely there. But after I stretched, I'd often probably have a coffee or something like that.
Yeah.
Then I converted my garage into a small gym. And I would go in there, and the number of tuck jumps, fast feet that I would do in that gym, and I would do at least 3 physical conditioning circuits a day.
Wow.
Yeah, that was conditioning. Always an hour run, and the runs were very different. I would do hill running. So it'd be run up, and they were all different hills. Long hills, short hills, the short sort of hills that you could imagine a bike going over, where they jump off the hill or something like that.
You might recall a player called John Taylor, an Irish player.
Yes.
John Taylor. I never really got the chance to see John Taylor play. He was around the mid-'80s and he was finishing. He had a brother that was an excellent badminton player as well. But he told me, he told a really good close friend, he loved training in Bushy Park, is a place where Mark knows very well. There was a steep hill and he would run up and down that hill relentlessly, literally. Would spend maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours doing that a couple of days a week. It reminds me what you're saying there, Ray. There's something about badminton players who want to be the best, and he won many national titles in Ireland. So it's fascinating to hear you make this.
So hill running was only one of the styles of running I did. The next one would be called interval style running, but it would be... it was called fartlek in our day, which was very much a Swedish style of running. And it went to a beautiful part of Essex, forest, and you say that tree's 30 metres away from me, bang, you go and you've gone to that tree. And now you jog for 20 metres, and that tree's about 40 metres, bang, you go. And you get to heel and you say sprint, and then you jog and sprint, all interval style. And that took an hour, and if you were enjoying yourself. And this we used to often do in a group. Darren would come with us at 13 years of age, Billy Gilliland, Kevin Jolly, the whole group would go out and we'd look at like a gang, and it was crazy. And I know Phil Sutton's contacted you. And
yes, Phil has been there. He used a word, by the way, to describe you, and we'll take a pause in about 2 minutes, by the way, on this, and we'll move on to the second part, only simply because we have to put more money in this Zoom kind of meter here. But his word that he used was awesome. That's what he called you, awesome. I have lots of superlatives, but Phil obviously knows what the experience you brought and you were bringing. And did he?
Yeah, they were good training days. Perhaps we can get back to that, because there's one other type of running that I did, and that was strict track running. So you try and find the best track you could find, which was often a school field, but the track, and it would go like this, 10 times 50 metres. Yeah. 10 times 50 metres backwards.
Backwards? Okay? Running backwards.
You move 50% of the time on a badminton court backwards.
Backwards, that's right. You know? Yeah.
And all the good physical trainers, and I met scores of them in my time, I said, where's your backwards running? Badminton's such a multi-movement sport. You've got to move in every single direction.
Well, just to cut across you there, Ray, talking about backwards, we're going to move forwards just for 1 minute and take a pause. And there we have to take our pause on a fascinating first part with Ray Stevens. Mark, that's incredible stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to that, John. His training regime was fascinating. He seemed to love a lot of variety, and he brought a lot of variety to his training regime, which probably helped him a huge amount. That backwards running, I guarantee you, I don't think many people do backwards running even today.
Mark, do you know what? It's rare that I see it. Everything is worked on forward, sometimes sideways. There's a big tip for any badminton player of all ages that wants to improve their game. Start running backwards. Mark, I love what he said. And I was saying this to all our listeners here on the Badminton Talk podcast. You need to be obsessed if you want to make it. And not everybody wants to do it. but there's nothing better than waking up in the morning and saying, I want to be world class. Does that not give you goosebumps, Mark?
Yeah, well, it just shows you the mindset that Ray had to achieve what he did. He woke up every day and his first thought was, how can I get better today? What can I do today to reach my goal of being world class? Just a fantastic way to approach life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mark, and the final thing I wanted to say there, I want to do a big shout out there for someone you might have known in playing in the circuit back in the day, maybe before you, John Taylor. And I'm looking at the record. He won 5, if I'm correct, 5 singles titles in Ireland: 74, 75, 80, 82 and 83. Thoughts?
Brilliant. I never saw John play, but that is a phenomenal record. Men's singles, incredibly hard event to win, and to win it 5 times.
Yeah.
Well done, John Taylor.
Yeah, well done, John Taylor. And, of course, to all our listeners here over the last 40 minutes on the Badminton Talk Podcast, sponsored by the Q Shuttle. We thank you for listening. And, Mark, what are you doing today? Any plans this Saturday?
I'm going to go for a run now, and then I'm going to do a bit of yoga. That's my plan for the rest of the day.
Run and yoga for Mark Topping. Wait till you see Mark when he's back in action. Serious stuff going on, listeners, okay? You better get ready in those master tournaments. Not even the master tournaments. Mark is, I tell you, is working hard every day. That's the way it works. So listen, that's it. Mark, see you next Saturday at 11 o'clock. Okay?
John, great to chat. Thanks again. Brilliant.
Okay. Ray Stevens next Saturday, part 2.
Absolutely.